Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
From Adams Morgan to Anacostia Park, we all want safer neighborhoods. But what does real safety mean? Real safety means preventing crime before it happens. By having police work with communities to disrupt cycles of violence. By supporting families with stable housing. And providing more mental health and drug treatment. We know that adding more police and locking up more people doesn't make us safer. Real safety means investing in the things that help prevent crime. Learn more at RealSafetyDC.
Hi there, and welcome again to the Explaining History podcast. This is part 2 of the podcast I did yesterday on Tito and Yugoslavia and Stalin, and the kind of the first post-war kind of schism within the communist world. And yesterday we were kind of looking into the kind of the Russian chauvinism towards Yugoslavia, and the idea that Tito was quite the Stalinist economically, but was well aware, along with the rest of the Yugoslav Communist Party, of the implications of Stalin's economic designs for Yugoslavia. The 5-year plans, the rapid industrialization that Tito hoped for, Stalin discouraged. He saw Tito's Yugoslavia as being a useful net exporter of agricultural products. And, you know, if you are at the heart of a burgeoning new empire, then essentially ordering the economic outputs of your vassal states is really, really important, and making sure that people over there produce coal, people over there produce timber, people over there produce lots and lots of raw materials that you can have for a song. But what you don't want them necessarily is producing high quality manufactured goods, because you're going to produce them and you're going to sell them, and a unit of manufactured goods is going to lead to a net outflow of wealth from the country you sell it to. This is how colonialism is basically structured, and neo-colonialism. So there was a kind of a robust rejection of Stalinism, or Stalinist interference and pressure in the second half of the 1940s. So now we're going to dive in and look at the expulsion of Yugoslavia from Cominform. So, as with yesterday, we're reading from R.J. Crampton's Eastern Europe in the 20th Century and After. And he writes, the assumption that Yugoslav comrades could be treated similarly to others in Eastern Europe became critical in the field of foreign affairs. Here, Tito's confidence that he could make his own policy caused real fears in the Kremlin that Yugoslav exuberance could provoke the West into anti-communist action, precisely when Stalin needed tranquility and time to consolidate his authority. At this point, by about 1947, the Western intelligence agencies are becoming increasingly active in kind of guerrilla operations, particularly in the Balkans, parachuting people in for all sorts of essentially kind of suicidal missions. Lots of these were blown by Philby. There's a great part in a part of Philip Knightley's biography of Philby, KGB Master Spy, when Philby was eventually rumbled when he was MI6 liaison to Washington by an FBI guy who just said, "Oh, it doesn't stack up, does it? Every operation that's blown, this British guy is somehow connected to it. It's got to be him." But in his memoirs, Philby said that the people being parachuted in, it was perfectly fine to blow their cover. These were not nice people. These were people looking to sow the seeds of chaos in sovereign nations, and to an extent there is something to that. But anyway, the fear that Stalin's inner circle had that Tito could become, if he wasn't going to be a faithful vassal, could either be drawn into a Western sphere of influence, or Yugoslavia could become a staging post for subversion to the rest of the communist bloc. And we're in a time of intense consolidation here. In the second half of the 1940s, the newly acquired empire that Stalin had needed to be quickly consolidated and defended. There was no doubting Tito's audacity. His troops had occupied Trieste at the end of the war and showed no disposition to leave it. Stalin had ordered the Yugoslavs out on the grounds that he was not prepared to make it the cause of a Third World War. Nor was there support for Tito in August 1946, when his forces shot down 2 US transport aircraft overflying Yugoslav territory. Tito had no choice but to apologize and pay compensation. In Greece, the Yugoslavs continued to help the communist forces despite Moscow's disapproval, and the Kremlin was equally disapproving of Tito's talk of a Balkan Federation. For his part, Tito showed no signs of being willing to buckle to Soviet authority. After being ordered out of Trieste, he made a speech at Ljubljana in May 1945, in which he stated that Yugoslavia would not be dependent on anyone in its foreign policy. "We do not want to be small change. We do not want to be involved in any spheres of influence," he said. And that's May 1945. That is the last days of the Second World War in Europe. And already, at the end of the Second World War in Europe, the Third Reich has just been defeated. Tito is saying we are going to be non-aligned, and I think that gets overlooked. This statement from the get-go, he was saying, we are not going to fall into anyone's sphere of influence, and obviously Yugoslavia becomes part of the non-aligned movement, which I've written quite a lot recently about the Bandung Conference and the non-aligned movement on the Explaining History website. So I'll put a link to that down below. You can go and check it out. The Soviet ambassador in Belgrade thought the speech an act of hostility towards the Soviet Union. The extension of Tito's speech could be that if Yugoslavia did not become part of any sphere of influence, it could become an independent factor in world affairs, and in communist affairs too. Given Tito's insistence that the Yugoslav version of socialist construction was of equal validity to that of the Soviet Union, there was a danger that other East European leaders could find the Yugoslav model more attractive and more relevant than the Soviet, especially since they, like the Communist Party of Yugoslavia, had just emerged from depression, right-wing government, war, and foreign occupation. This danger seemed to be heightened by Tito's travels in 1946 to 47. The partisan war record had made him almost a legend, and his visits to Warsaw, Prague, Sofia, Budapest, and Bucharest took on the appearance of a triumphal tour. And Stalin's ego, his vanity, would never have tolerated such a thing. This is Stalin who, at the end of the Second World War, reminded Zhukov that he need not get above himself. He said, Marshal Zhukov, all of these medals have gone to your head, and think he made some kind of allusion to Napoleon. As Stalin needed for his own kind of political survival to be fated as the kind of the key figure in the defeat of the Nazis.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
From Adams Morgan to Anacostia Park, we all want safer neighborhoods. But what does real safety mean? Real safety means preventing crime before it happens. By having police work with communities to disrupt cycles of violence. By supporting families with stable housing. And providing more mental health and drug treatment. We know that adding more police and locking up more people doesn't make us safer. Real safety means investing in the things that help prevent crime. Learn more at RealSafetyDC.
In July 1947, the Yugoslavs and Bulgarians concluded a Bled agreement in which there was a reference to a federation and a Bulgarian commitment to a new policy in Pirin, Macedonia. The Greek communists misinterpreted the Bled agreement as an indication that Stalin now preferred for a more forward policy, and therefore they declared a provisional government and mobilized all forces under their control for an all-out offensive. Also in November 1947, Nako Spiru, a pro-Moscow member of the Albanian Politburo, committed suicide in protest against what he considered to be a virtual Yugoslav takeover of his country. Tito seemed to be dominating the Balkans and to be pursuing policies entirely of his own making, given his proven record of intransigence and the widespread but fallacious assumption in the West that he was acting under Moscow's guidance. The dangers of Western retaliation were increased. Tito had to be reined in or destroyed. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to unpack there. The kind of the nature of Tito's kind of interference in Stalin's grand plan can be seen in the Bled agreement, and the possibility that some kind of regional federation might have emerged. And Stalin's view was that it was not for states within his sphere of influence to be making bilateral agreements with one another. Far from it. That central coordination from Moscow in a top-down manner, certainly in the late 1940s, was all that was going to be permissible. Stalin decided to overturn the Yugoslav Balkan policy by enticing it into overdrive. A Yugoslav delegation was called to Moscow and encouraged to absorb Albania, as a result of which Tito asked for a military base near Kortrosy. Meanwhile, the Bulgarian leader, Dimitrov, talked enthusiastically in Bucharest of a Balkan Federation, which would include communist Greece. Then came the cold douche. Pravda disagreed with Dimitrov. So this is a classic tactic of giving a rival the inspiration to really take an idea and run with it, and then you have Pravda or Stalin writing in Pravda disagreeing, saying no, this you got ahead of yourself. You have got ideas above your station. You have made grave errors here, and this discrediting the idea, which is a very kind of very cunning way of drawing your enemy out to make mistakes and then to publicly attack them. So yes, Pravda disagreed with Dimitrov, after which Yugoslavia and Bulgaria were invited to send delegations to Moscow. Tito refused to go and sent Edvard Kardelj, his ideology expert, instead. On February the 10th, Stalin raged at the two delegations, insisting that the Bled Agreement had been concluded without the Soviets being informed of its contents, and that the Yugoslav entry into Albania would give the Americans an excuse to act in the Balkans. Stalin then insisted that the Greek revolt be closed down and that in future Yugoslavia should consult Moscow on all foreign policy questions. Finally, the Soviet leader demanded an immediate Bulgarian-Yugoslav federation of two equal units. He ruled out both the larger federation of all Balkan states and the Yugoslav concept of a Yugoslav-Bulgarian federation of 7 units, 6 republics of Yugoslavia plus Bulgaria. Belgrade rejected Stalin's proposed federation as a Bulgarian-Soviet Trojan horse. In retaliation, the Soviet Union turned down renewed requests for economic assistance put forward by the Yugoslavs. Relations deteriorated rapidly. On the 18th of March, Soviet advisors were withdrawn from Yugoslavia, and on the 27th of March, the anniversary of the 1941 coup, Stalin sent his first letter to the Communist Party of Yugoslavia. Further exchange produced a Soviet proposal to refer the matters at issue between the two parties to Cominform, but this the Communist Party of Yugoslavia would not accept. Tito stood firm, but Soviet propaganda scored points off the Communist Party of Yugoslavia's decision in May to arrest Hebrang and Zhugovic. By now, the Hungarian party, at the Kremlin's request, had joined in the criticism of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia. This was the beginning of a deep and bitter hatred which Tito felt for Rákosi, the leader of Communist Hungary, who had once himself complained to Tito of Moscow's overbearing policies. By the end of May, a settlement had become all but impossible, and Cominform made its final preparations for the expulsion of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia on the 28th of June. Stalin's underlying fear had been of an uncontrollable element in the communist camp. This had been compounded by the rapid deterioration of East-West relations following the Prague coup of February 1948 and the Five Nations Brussels Treaty, the forerunner of NATO, which was signed a few weeks later. Stalin was also aware of the situation in the Far East, in where the Chinese Communist Party was advancing rapidly towards victory. Mao Zedong's forces, like Tito's, had fought their own battles against foreign occupation without help from Stalin. Well, that's not entirely true. Stalin had helped Mao in Manchuria considerably, but not put boots on the ground.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Their long march was comparable to the partisans' trek to Bosnia in 1941, and the Chinese, like the partisans, imposed a rural-based revolution on the territory they occupied. If Stalin was to remain the unchallenged leader of the socialist world, he had to show that the Soviet system would prevail over such heretical revolutions. Now, what I find interesting is the later Sino-Soviet split, which actually began soon, sort of earlier than you think. Stalin is quite a Mao skeptic and humiliates Mao when Mao visits Stalin for his birthday. And the experience of Tito, and Tito's kind of refusal to follow the Moscow line, and his focus on peasant revolution and a range of other things, kind of prepares the ground for the Soviet skepticism towards the Chinese and towards Mao. And the experience of Tito obviously comes beforehand, and not too and quite soon, sort of beforehand. The assumption in Moscow was that once it was known he had lost Soviet approval, Tito would collapse. "I will shake my little finger and there will be no more Tito," Stalin remarked. However, as Khrushchev was reported to have said, Stalin could shake his little finger or any other part of his anatomy he liked, but it made no difference to Tito. Yet Tito's survival was not guaranteed. In an extraordinary party conference, which was called in July, he allowed an open debate and a free secret vote on the split. In addition to the amazement of other Cominform parties, he sanctioned publication of all correspondence between the Communist Party of Yugoslavia and Moscow. The Yugoslav party leader criticized neither Stalin nor the Soviet Union. His quarrel instead was with Cominform. Once the initial debate had been aired, however, Tito took severe measures against any Cominformists within the CPY, the Communist Party of Yugoslavia. The more so after August, when the senior general, Arso Jovanovic, had been shot whilst trying to cross the border into Romania, where it was assumed he would either prepare for the invasion of Yugoslavia or become head of a pro-Soviet government in exile. A number of Cominformists were murdered, some went into exile, and many thousands were interned in a fearsome concentration camp established on the island of Goli Otok. Because of the continuing Soviet intimidation, Tito did not relax his grip until the early 1950s. By then, Stalin had been humbled. To save some prestige, he attempted to utilize the split with Tito as an excuse for the collapse of the Greek communist cause, which, he argued, had been sabotaged by the Yugoslavs. Much more sinister, however, was the fact that Zhdanov had been, at one point during the dispute of 1948, had told Cominform that the Soviets had proof that the Communist Party of Yugoslavia had been penetrated by British spies. Although the accusation was not included in the official documentation, Zhdanov had conjured up the awful spectre of the purges of the 1930s. That ghost was soon to terrify all of Eastern Europe. The charge of Titoism was to be used to cleanse the East European parties of any potential threats to Stalin's authority or to the Soviet monopoly of the world communist movement. Tito becoming, in the 1940s, or late 1940s, or the 1950s even, what Trotsky was in the 1930s, this figurehead to revile and to justify purges and the hunting out of the disloyal. Okay, well, we will perhaps continue that story soon, and I'll maybe record something a little bit later. Keep your eyes peeled for an announcement I'm putting out probably later this week On the masterclass we're running for students, A-level students, after Christmas, on how to answer exam questions about Stalin and the Stalin era. So more on that as it comes. Make sure that you sign up for that, because if that's what you're studying, and if you've got your A levels coming next year, because it really is going to be a game changer for you. Okay. Anyway, take good care, and I'll catch you on the next podcast. All the best. Bye bye.
From Adams Morgan to Anacostia Park, we all want safer neighborhoods. But what does real safety mean? Real safety means preventing crime before it happens. By having police work with communities to disrupt cycles of violence, by supporting families with stable housing, and providing more mental health and drug treatment. We know that adding more police and locking up more people doesn't make us safer. Real safety means investing in the things that help prevent crime. Learn more at RealSafetyDC.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Explaining History. This podcast is an independent production, and it's listener support that keeps these conversations going week after week. If you find value in the show and want to help cover the costs of research and production, please consider making a contribution. You can join our community on Patreon or make a one-off donation. Just follow the links in the show notes for this episode. Every bit of support is truly appreciated. Thanks again for listening.